Armenia-Azerbaijan clashes, live news. Al Jazeera's live coverage of the latest military escalation in the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region. Heavy fighting between Azerbaijani and Armenian forces broke out in the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region on Sunday. Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Armenian-controlled Nagorno-Karabakh declared martial law. Azerbaijan ordered its military to mobilize. Both sides blamed each other for the worst escalation since 2016, amid reports of casualties. U.S. urges immediate halt to violence. The United States has condemned escalating violence between Azerbaijan and Armenia, calling on both sides to cease hostilities immediately. The State Department said in a statement that both sides should immediately end the violence, as well as any rhetoric or other actions that could worsen tensions. It said any participation in the escalating violence by outside parties would be deeply unhelpful. UN chief calls for immediate end to fighting. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has said he is extremely concerned over the fresh resumption of hostilities between Armenia and Azerbaijan. The Secretary-General strongly calls on the sides to immediately stop fighting, de-escalate tensions, and return to meaningful negotiations without delay, Guterres' spokesman said in a statement. Guterres condemns the use of force and regrets the loss of life and the toll on the civilian population, the statement said, adding that the Secretary-General would speak to the President of Azerbaijan and the Prime Minister of Armenia. Armenia fully responsible for present situation, Azerbaijan FM. Full responsibility for the present situation on the Armenian-Azerbaijani border falls squarely on the political and military leadership of Armenia, Azerbaijan's foreign ministry has said. Another act of aggression by Armenia against Azerbaijan is a blatant violation of fundamental norms and principles of international law, international humanitarian law, including the Geneva Conventions of 1949 and their additional protocols, as well as United Nations Security Council Resolutions 822, 853, 874, 884 of 1993, demanding the immediate and unconditional withdrawal of the armed forces of Armenia from the occupied territories of Azerbaijan, the ministry said in a statement. Nagorno-Karabakh says region has lost some territory to Azerbaijan's army. The Nagorno-Karabakh leader Araik Harutyunyan has said that the breakaway region has lost some positions to Azerbaijan's army amid renewed clashes. He also said there were dead and wounded both among civilians and military personnel. Armenia says it is checking reports of Syrian fighters in Azerbaijan. Armenian Defense Ministry has said it was checking reports about combatants from Syria who are allegedly fighting for Azerbaijan's side. Hikmet Hajiyev, the foreign policy aide to the Azerbaijani president, dismissed the report carried by the UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights as nonsense. Azerbaijan village calls for help. The residents of a village in an area of western Azerbaijan under attack by Armenia has asked for international help to end their suffering. Israel Hasayev, who lives in the village of Kopanli in the city of Tartar, said they are frequently fired upon by Armenia with heavy weapons. Women, the elderly, children, all are leaving their homes, he told Anadolu Agency. Let the whole world hear us, such torment cannot be tolerated, said Ibrahim Zaman, another local. What is the world doing? At least 23 killed in clashes. Armenia and Azerbaijan have accused each other of initiating deadly clashes in which at least 23 people were killed. 16 Armenian separatist fighters were killed and more than 100 wounded in the fighting, rebel officials said. Both sides also reported casualties, including at least one Armenian woman and child. Baku said an Azerbaijani family of 5 were killed in shelling launched by Armenian separatists. Top Turkish, Russian diplomats discuss. Turkey's Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu and his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov have spoken over the phone. They discussed Armenia's aggression against Azerbaijan, said Turkish diplomatic sources, who asked not to be named due to restrictions on speaking to the media. According to a Russian Foreign Ministry statement, the need for an early ceasefire and stabilization of the situation on the line of contact between the countries was stressed. Separately, Cavusoglu spoke with Azerbaijan's Foreign Minister Ceyhun Bayramov on the phone regarding the recent clashes. Turkey criticizes Armenia, supports Baku. Turkey has sharply criticized Armenia, saying Yerevan was an obstacle to peace and promising to continue its support for Azerbaijan. In a statement on Twitter following a phone call with Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan called on Armenian people to stand against leaders who he said were dragging them to catastrophe, adding that Ankara's solidarity with Baku would increasingly continue. Turkey calls on the entire world to stand with Azerbaijan in their battle against invasion and cruelty, Erdogan said. Azerbaijani family killed in Armenian rebel shelling. Azerbaijan's General Prosecution Office has said 5 people from one family have been killed in shelling launched by Armenian separatist forces. As a result of artillery shelling by Karabakh rebels, a family comprising 5 members was killed in Azerbaijan's village of Gash-Alti, the Office of Azerbaijan's Prosecutor General said in a statement. NATO urges immediate end to clashes. A senior NATO official has called on Azerbaijan and Armenia to immediately end clashes in the occupied Upper Karabakh region. The parties should immediately end clashes, James Apathuri, the NATO Secretary-General's special representative for the Caucasus and Central Asia, said in a statement. The parties should resume negotiations for a peaceful solution. NATO supports the efforts of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe OSCE Minsk Group. Azerbaijan claims captured strategic mountain from Karabakh forces. Azerbaijani forces have captured from Armenian rebels a strategic mountain in Nagorno-Karabakh that helps control transport communications between Yerevan and the Armenian-held enclave, Azerbaijan's presidency has said. Azerbaijani forces have taken the 3,000-meter-high strategic Muraf Dog Peak in Karabakh, presidency spokesman Hikmet Hajiyev told journalists. Azerbaijani forces killed 16 Armenian rebel troops. 16 Armenian separatist fighters have been killed in Nagorno-Karabakh, rebel officials have said. According to preliminary data, 16 Karabakh servicemen were killed and more than 100 wounded since fighting erupted, the separatist defense ministry said, while both Baku and Yerevan reported civilian casualties earlier. Azerbaijan declares state of war in some cities, regions. Azerbaijan's parliament has declared a state of war in some of its cities and regions. In a meeting, the National Assembly passed a measure partially and temporarily restricting the constitutional and property rights and freedoms of Azerbaijani citizens and foreigners in the country as long as the war situation continues. Under the decision, a curfew may also be declared at certain times in some regions. Putin and Armenia PM discuss clashes, Kremlin. Russian President Vladimir Putin and Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan have discussed the clashes in a phone call, the Kremlin has said in a statement. It said the conversation noted that it was important not to allow further escalation of the conflict and it was necessary to halt all military action. Turkey's position is in line with international law. Mehmet Çelik, the managing editor of the Turkish daily Sabah, told Al Jazeera, Turkey's position is in line with how international law has recognized the region. Turkey has taken a firm position for Azerbaijan's rights and international law due to the failure of diplomacy by the Minsk Group, which has failed unfortunately to find a solution to this decades-long conflict between the two countries. It has been pushed under the carpet, Çelik said. Azerbaijan approves martial law, curfews, president's aid. Azerbaijan's parliament has approved the introduction of martial law across the country and imposed curfews, Hikmet Hajiyev, an aide to the president has said. Iran says ready to facilitate talks. Iran has called for an end to the fighting and said it was ready to facilitate talks and a ceasefire between its two neighbours. Iran is closely following the military conflict between the republics of Azerbaijan and Armenia with concern, Foreign Ministry spokesman Saeed Khatibzadeh said in a statement. Tehran is ready to use all of its capacities to establish ceasefire and start talks between the two sides, he said, and called for an immediate end to the conflict.